All right, this is the why of Bitcoin part 2. So we covered some things about Bitcoin, comparisons to our current system, and so now I'm going to dive into kind of a little bit more aspects of Bitcoin and maybe some comparisons to other crypto or other digital currencies. So let's kind of back up here. Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency, right? So it exists on the internet. It has what's called an open ledger. Now, an open ledger is just the comings and the goings of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was bought here and sold here. And those are used. There's called an address, your Bitcoin address, and so I think 20 or 60 characters. I'd have to look. Long bunch of letters, and then usually it manifests itself in the form of a QR code on a Bitcoin wallet. So that ledger is the blockchain. The miners have that incentive because if they're keeping track of those the spending and the transfers, I guess, of Bitcoin going around, then they get a block reward if they finish that block. So the miners are the ones that keep track of that. Of the Bitcoin ledger. So again, comparison to our existing monetary system. So if we have an open ledger here on Bitcoin, anyone can maintain the ledger on their own, in their own home. That's called running a full node. I need to do it. I haven't even done it. But you can also look on, I think like blockchain.org or Blockchain Explorer or something like that. You could Google it. There's a few websites out there that you can like put your Bitcoin address in, a public address, put it in there and see has your Bitcoin moved. But you're trusting that website that they're telling you the truth. Whereas if you run a full node, you can discover that for yourself without any intermediary. Remember, Bitcoin is decentralized. If you go to another web page like that, you're letting that central authority, that web page, tell you. And, that's okay, but just understand where you're at in that, what you're trusting and what you're not, because Bitcoin is trustless. That's what the design was to be, and therefore everyone can trust it if it's trustless. Kind of ironic, kind of weird to think about. So this open ledger of Bitcoin is really just all the blocks, boom, boom, boom. So many transactions on Bitcoin happen on each block. Miners keep track of it, and then the important part, me and you can see what's happening on that block. Okay, let's compare that to your bank down the street. You've got Bank X down there, and dollars are being transacted. They're going back and forth. Some people are borrowing, some people are spending, some people are getting a paycheck. All these transactions are happening, and there's no way to see. So you really couldn't audit the dollar. And if you could, the Federal Reserve would have to participate in that. And I think people have tried to audit the Fed, which they've never done, to my knowledge. So correct me if I'm wrong. Ron Paul, I believe, tried to do that. I know he's tried to end the Fed, which I'm all for. Anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent there, but no one knows what the ledger looks like on dollars. I don't even know if any one person really knows how many dollars have truly been created. We can just look at what the debt is and things like that, but do we really truly know how many dollars have been created? My understanding, there's like one computer at the Central Reserve or at the Federal Reserve that it's like a one node, and it just has all these transactions on it. Who knows? They're not. It's a secret. We're not told this stuff. So remember, Bitcoin's trustless. We just have to trust them that they are telling us the truth, and then obviously if we don't trust them, we try to gather our information from other places, and you can always see what reality is. They're clearly printing money. We got inflation, everyone knows that. There's always been inflation. So anyone can see these transactions. The code is open source. Anyone can look at it and decide for themselves if they like that code. The code is very difficult to change. Bitcoin is arguably, or is, the most secure computer network on Earth, and more people are running to the Bitcoin network, thus strengthening it more every day. I kind of look at it as, I think a really, really good comparison is if you ever watched on TV the human pyramid competitions. I can't remember what I want to say they do that in Spain. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where they do that, but I've seen it on TV, you know. And the taller this human pyramid gets, the more you just see these people rushing in at the bottom to strengthen that base. And that's what's happening to Bitcoin right now. Every day there's just people rushing in. More and more miners are rushing in. Well, what that does is that strengthens the computer code, that strengthens the network, and keeps from an attack happening, a successful attack happening on the network, which would be, they say, a 51% attack would allow for someone to double spend, because they could at that point control the transactions. I think it would be dang near impossible. I don't think it would happen this day and age. It just is, you know, it's so secure that I put a majority of my life savings into Bitcoin. How's that? So now, the Bitcoin network has never been hacked, but exchanges, you know, Mt. Gox back in the day, and you even hear about other exchanges getting hacked even today. You know, so the exchanges are one thing, the Bitcoin network is another. So the inflation rate we talked a little about, it's a known, it's 1.8%. It's going to zero due to the halving cycle of Bitcoin. And ultimately, one of my whys of Bitcoin, and it's maybe at the top of, well, not at the top of my list, but dang near at the top of my list, is it can make me rich. And if it's not going to make me rich, it's probably going to make my kids or my grandkids rich. I'm going to make another video sometime on Bitcoin adoption, but in comparison to like cell phone adoption, we're kind of in the bag phone stage. We are so early in Bitcoin. You know, people think that, you know, at a $30,000 or $60,000 price, that they lost, it's gone. You know, I should have got it when it was $10. You know, like, once you dive into Bitcoin and understand the why of Bitcoin, and I can't emphasize that enough, the why of Bitcoin. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've come away from, and people think they know about cryptocurrencies, and they throw Bitcoin in the mix, and they don't understand what separates Bitcoin from the rest. And once you understand the why of Bitcoin, then you're going to want to run to it. And more people are with time. You know, Bitcoin adoption's going up there. You know, when we have things like this trucker stuff in Canada, and their Prime Minister Trudeau is, you know, freezing bank accounts for people donating to it, so people find another way. They go to Bitcoin because Bitcoin's decentralized. There's no one that controls it. So people can donate Bitcoin. You know, the stuff going on in Russia and Ukraine, they're receiving Bitcoin donations. No one can stop it. All you need is an internet connection. And guess what? You know, Elon Musk put his, I think it's Starlink, you know, sending essentially internet over there. Anyone can connect to, my understanding anyway. And you can't stop it. So people are figuring out this on their own. And at some point, we will all start to understand, as a group or as a whole on this earth, you know, there's the other digital currencies over here, and then there's Bitcoin over here. And hey, if you want to trade those other digital currencies, I have a little bit, you know, to try to get rich. I kind of look at some of them like a penny stock. Some of them have other use cases, you know, Ethereum, you know, smart contracts. I don't understand them all the way, but some of my understanding is like if you put like your house on the blockchain, like the Ethereum blockchain, you know, then it's recorded there for everyone to see, and somehow, like, you wouldn't probably need maybe a title company, because now everyone sees, okay, I owned that right there, and now it's got transferred to this person. And I really have a very rudimentary knowledge on smart contracts, but my point is there might be other use cases out there for other currencies, but maybe not necessarily as money. Couple things to ask yourself when it comes to that. You know, if you're having a hard time being like, well, Bitcoin, there's Bitcoin here, and there's Dogecoin or Ethereum or Solana, or I think there's at least 10,000 other cryptos out there. So how do you decide on it? Well, Bitcoin, ask yourself, who's the CEO of this? Okay, who's the CEO of Ethereum? Vitalik Buterin. Oh, it has a CEO. Well, that sounds a lot like the current system. Who's the CEO of the Federal Reserve? Well, Jerome Powell. kind of an eyebrow raiser. Oh, we got a CEO, so therefore that CEO has control of that, we'll call it a product, that thing. Oh, that's okay. What's the emission schedule? What's the inflation rate? Can the inflation rate be changed by this other stuff? Okay, some more questions to ask. Now maybe your eyes are starting to get opened. Okay, so was there a pre-mine? Pre-mine meaning they created this new token like Ethereum or something, and they gave themselves, let's say they created 100 billion of them, and they gave themselves 50 million of these tokens, and then they put it out on the market and it goes sky high. Was there a pre-mine, and is that right? You got to decide that for yourself. To my knowledge, Bitcoin did have a pre-mine. Satoshi Nakamoto kept his I think he had mined 1 million Bitcoin or pre-mined them, I'm not sure, but Satoshi Nakamoto has roughly, I think it's a little over 1 million Bitcoin. That should be an eyebrow raiser. Let's question that. Well, one, we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. They've melted back into anonymity and have never resurfaced, which is fine. The program's doing what I'm sure he meant it to do, probably beyond his wildest dreams. And now it's just doing its thing. Because the computer program doesn't care about geopolitics or wars or famines, anything. It has no feelings. It can't be influenced. So it's just Bitcoin's just running its program, which is to just do transactions, do the mining reward, and yeah, it's just doing its thing. So, and importantly to me anyway, is those a little over 1 million Bitcoin, remember we have an open ledger on Bitcoin, so we can see transactions go on and coming. So somehow we got to know what the public address was. So that doesn't mean you can get to the Bitcoin, you can just check on it on the blockchain for these little over 1 million Bitcoin of Satoshi Nakamoto's. Those 1 million Bitcoin, we'll call them, have never ever moved. That's a good thing. Now, if they suddenly moved one day, would that be a disaster? Absolutely not. They would just melt right into the market. Right now, this day and age, you might see a dip in the price, but they would the market would absorb it and move on. There's nothing, again, the program is strengthened by all these miners rushing in, and there's nothing they can do to change that. So even if Satoshi Nakamoto did resurface, but I think it's important that he melted into anonymity for them, just because the program is the program, let it speak for itself. So think about that when it comes to other cryptocurrencies or other digital currencies. What's the emission rate? Can I see it? Can I see things happening on the blockchain? I can get on the computer right now and watch transactions happen. It's actually almost humbling to see, just transactions happening on the blockchain. You can see like commerce live, and it's happening all over the world. You can see who's getting the block reward. So thus, I guess I better throw a blurb in there. If you're a criminal, Bitcoin's probably not for you. There might be eventually some second and third tiered networks. We got the Lightning Network built on top of the Bitcoin network, so it uses Bitcoin, but anonymity is probably not your friend at this point in time. With Bitcoin, it's pretty easily tracked. So if you're kind of the dishonest type, Bitcoin's not for you. I'd stick to cash dollars. People talk about, Bitcoin's used for criminality and all that. Well, you're really stupid if you're using it, and you're a criminal. And two, I would argue, the US dollar has way more criminal activity with it, both digitally and actual cash, than anything else on earth. So I hope kind of this clears up some of the why of Bitcoin. That's what I really want to emphasize, the why of Bitcoin, why it's important, why it separates itself from the rest of the pack, why it's its own category. And these, making this video kind of made me think, well, why do I really love Bitcoin if I'm actually to write it down? And it's for these reasons, and I did write them down here on my board here for notes for this video. And the why is what keeps me in Bitcoin. It's what gives me the conviction to stay into Bitcoin when, you know, I bought a chunk of it at $68,000 and it's down to like 35, 39,000 right now. I don't care. You know, I don't care because one, it's money I didn't need right now today. Two, it was my choice. And three, I'm in it for the long haul. And maybe you should be too. You know, I wouldn't invest money, the amount of money in a Bitcoin that's going to keep you up at night or keep your spouse up at night, but I would get off of zero. Do not own zero Bitcoin. Does that make sense? Get off of zero Bitcoin. Own some Bitcoin. Own some, just so you have it. Because there is a potential that one day we all wake up and the world reserve currency is no longer the dollar. It could happen that fast. And we just shifted from the dollar to Bitcoin. And the value of Bitcoin at that time could be, now if you read Vijay Boyapati's book, A Bullish Case for Bitcoin, right at the end, he kind of surmises, you know, and I don't like to give price predictions, but I like to know where it could go, what the high end is. And maybe this is 50 years, 75 years from now, that one Bitcoin could be worth anywhere between 10 million and $30 million. And when did he write that book? He might have wrote that book in 2019. I mean, because of inflation, we have to think about what years these books were written because, you know, 2019 dollars and 2020 dollars and 2021, 2020, $22, they're all different, right? So think about that, you know, even in 2022 dollars, 10 million to $30 million, what would that do for you and your family? Why not own some? And I know some people want to become whole coiners, own one full Bitcoin. Well, make that a goal. Make that a goal. Try to work toward it if you can. It's still well within the reach of a lot of people. If you've been working, you got a 401k and you don't mind cashing it out maybe because you believe in it and you have your conviction. And once you understand the why of Bitcoin, you understand, you will have the conviction of Bitcoin. You have the why of it, you get the conviction, then you don't waste so much time and sleep over what Bitcoin's doing from day to day. You just care about the overall trajectory, which right now is up. Bitcoin number go up. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Leave me questions below. Love to start interacting with anybody who has questions. Or if you're a Bitcoin nobody, get with me. If you understand the why of Bitcoin, I would love to have an interview with you and maybe we can spread this across the world and speed up Bitcoin adoption.